Hey everyone, it's Lisa Sweeney here from Business in Heels, and I'm so excited to kick off this great webinar today on gender equity best practices. Congratulations on taking the time to join this discussion. It's going to be a deep dive into the practices and behaviour that led to these amazing people that have joined me today becoming award winners. So whether you're a dedicated equity advocate or simply curious, this is a discussion you don't want to miss. We're going to be exploring this with our gender equity advocates, Celine Dickson and Ren Zhang. And unfortunately, we have had an apology from Robin Verrill, who's just working on some family issues. So welcome. It's great to have you both here. Let's give everyone a clapping hands, shaking hands. Exactly. So let's begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we join today's meeting. For me, it's the Wathaurong people. Can I ask any of you that are joining us to add yours into the chat? And on our behalf, I pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and future. And in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to the land, sea, and the community. And I pay my respects to the elders, past and present, and we extend that respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. Now, as many of you know, we run the Gender Equity Awards for Australia. It's now in its 4th year, and I'm excited to say that we're open for nominations. So if you happen to know a worthy company or an individual, please nominate them. You will make somebody's day. I can assure you, when people get that little message that says somebody's nominated you, it's just such a great buzz. And so why are we doing these webinars? Well, because we want to accelerate gender equity. We want to make workplaces great places to be. So by sharing out best practice ideas and things that you can adopt, we hope that you all don't have to go through the trial and error that these award winners have. So now it's my distinct pleasure to introduce our panelists properly. So let me start off with over 20 years in financial services. Celine Dickson has led major insurance portfolios at Aon, Allianz and HCF, driving growth and leading complex operations. As a chair of Allianz DEI committee, she championed inclusion, mentoring 33 women in insurance and guiding 378 plus employees through a transformative annual mentoring program. Celine was the winner in the senior manager category. Congratulations. So Celine, welcome. And can you share with us why you're so passionate about gender equity?
Yeah, it's been something that I've cultivated over my career, and something that I've been really it's something very personal to me. From a family perspective, I guess, my grandmother migrated to Australia from Poland after the Second World War, and her husband passed away, so she had no means. She left school when she was equivalent to 10 years of age, which was year 6. And that was the only education that she had. So her only opportunity was to remarry. And then, so that was her experience, but had a wonderful marriage to my grandfather. But that was all that she could amount to in terms of the opportunities that she had. And then my mother married my father and then had 3 children. And it was very much of those times expected that she would assume a domestic role. And she did. And so after, 28 years of marriage, she divorced, but then she didn't have any superannuation. She had all of her money in an asset, which was her house, and very low disposable income. So I think, why I'm so passionate about gender equity is because women need to have their own financial independence, because it gives them choices. And not only financial independence, but also career is so fulfilling and rewarding. It's a social network. It's part of your identity. And, having a rewarding career where you are really valued is really important, I think, as well. And forging and being the best version of yourself and being able to use, you know, what you've learned at school and apply it to the workforce and to grow businesses and grow people and have that as much as men do. So that's why it's very personal for me. But that's why, you know, and also forging a career in financial services, I found that early on in my career, it was still very traditional. It was very difficult for me to carve through, but I was very fortunate to have amazing sponsors and advocates as a high performer that really helped me along my career and advocated for me. But I used to look around and there wasn't a lot of those people, you know, 10, 15 years ago. Now, I found that the dynamic has changed significantly, really in only the last 5 years, where women are really being championed. There is now quotas. The pay gap is now on most scorecards for financial institutions to close the gap. Government is stepping up with also they are now expecting employers to publish their pay gaps, so sort of name and shame, which is, you know, so so long story short, but financial independence and also having a rewarding career is so key.
I love how you've mixed that blend of personal and, you know, no doubt it's shaped the reason why you have taken a financial career. So thank you for sharing that with us. So our next panelist is Ren Zhang. Ren has lived, studied and worked in Beijing, Melbourne and Los Angeles. She loves meeting people from different backgrounds, industries and countries and feels energized by being a good connector in a tech and non-tech worlds. She is the engagement manager in corporate technology at Coles and the winner of the manager category for the Gender Equity Awards Recalibrate. So congratulations, Ren. It's lovely to have you here. Can you share with us why you're so passionate about gender equity?
Thank you so much, Lisa. And I think for me, it's also very personal, I think, as Celine. So as you can see, I was not grow up in an English-speaking country, and as a minority woman, have my entire careers in the Australia or US, and especially in technology. That's also a male-dominated industry. And I have seen, including myself, we're always in this zone of trying to prove we're worthy, right? And we have taken a lot of responsibilities as a woman at work or at home or in the society. But unfortunately, the recognition and rewards is not as great as we expected, right? And the opportunities for a lot of women in whatever fields, doesn't matter whether it's a career progression or, there's business, it's not as smooth as our fellow men out there. So I think that kind of, this unfairness, right? And the craving to fight the unfairness drives me to play my small part in the gender equity area. And plus, personally, I have two lovely daughters. And I remember I saw this number from the Global Gender Gap Report 2024, basically saying, oh, we're still going to take 134 years to close the global gender gap. So yeah, the technology is going to increase. Everyone's going to live longer, but potentially, even when my daughter grow up, they still will face the same problem. And that frustrates me again. So that's why I think, I want to do just a small part, and for not only in technology, but also, I created a little podcast and it's called Have You Eaten? It's really, I want to just showcase you can raise your own visibility and you can actively seek the allies, actively seek the mentorship, and just even the visibility itself, right? To break the unconscious bias, it can change the situation for a lot of others. That's what drives me, Lisa.
I know, and I think I think it's wonderful too, Ren, because you have a bit of a mission to help other women of Asian descent to be seen as people that can speak up, don't you? Which is part of your
Yeah,
podcast. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Even without perfect English, we'll talk more about, you can speak. They will understand.
Yeah, exactly. So as you can see, we've got an amazing couple of people here to talk to me today about, we're going to get on to a little bit more about communication biases and things in our workplace that impact us negatively. One of the biggest barriers to achieving gender equity today is the deeply ingrained societal norms and stereotypes that shape our expectations of gender roles. And these stereotypes influence everything from career choices to household responsibilities, often limiting opportunities and reinforcing unequal power dynamics. So let's take a look at encouraging non-traditional roles and the power of mentoring and sponsorship. Celine, you are very passionate about this, and given that insurance is a male-dominated industry, as you mentioned, can you share your thoughts on how to change this and the importance of mentoring and sponsorship in doing so?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I think the challenges in the workplace obviously is just being traditional and the assumption of gender roles being quite traditional. So that's carried through from the domestic to then the workplace as well for a lot of people. And you're now faced with workforces that have got very diverse generations, sometimes up to 4 generations in one workplace with very different experiences and values. So I think for the micro inequities and the unconscious bias, I think it's really a case of a lot of organisations needing to have training programs, particularly for leaders, and a lot of them, the large organisations do now. And it's then really a case of everyone, building that into a social norm as well. So not just the leaders, but everyone around them to just have the right awareness in meetings and behaviours in the workplace that fosters inclusivity and really sort of call it out in a nice way, not confrontational, particularly in meetings that, I think, Jen had a question or, so I think everyone needs to be responsible and accountable for, policing and those micro inequities and unconscious bias. I think too, in terms of mentoring, for me, I think it's really a case of, I've really been an advocate of empowering women as well. So I think women with some of those social inequities have felt a little bit downtrodden, unempowered, maybe not so confident. And that's really a part of a lot of the mentoring programs that I've run, is really a case of turning that around and empowering women, amplifying their success and their capabilities, and really nurturing them in terms of, I think the expectations of women on ourselves is really high because we're doing it all now. We're doing such a big juggle in terms of, that domestic role, us thinking that we need to be championing that, our careers, championing also family. But the reality is that's not sustainable and we can't. And men need to step up, essentially. But we all, I think, have to change that dynamic and that the social traditional expectations on ourselves needs to change quickly for us to be able to forge forward.
I think for many of the discussions we often happen at the leadership summits are often that somebody else recognised something that people weren't aware of. So sometimes it's just that other encouragement to have a go at something. Yeah, I think you'd be perfect for that role. You've really got those sort of innate skills. Often is the tipping point as to people's careers really taking off in a huge trajectory. And so both for women and men, but I think that's where mentorship can make such a huge powerful thing. And also, to your point, normalizing that women can't do it all. I think being kind to ourselves of I saw a great article on the weekend about, CEOs that are doing it all have a team behind them of very highly paid nannies and carers and whatever else, right? So, understand that you're not expected to be the perfect person in every field. Now, Ren, you work in a similar male dominated because you're in the tech side of retail. What sort of thoughts do you have to add to this discussion?
Yeah, I think absolutely agree with yourself and Celine on the mentorship. I think it's a must-have, which a lot of women think is a nice to have. Like a lot of my friends say, yeah, when I have time, I'll go find a mentor. But I think it's the other way from my own experience and from what I can see. If you have a look, all the people who are successful in whatever they're doing, I can see from my experience, no exception, they all have mentors, right? And as a woman, I think we have to value that and put that on your agenda to seek the mentorship as the first priority, because you can't do it all. And to be honest, if whatever we do works, that means you already live the dream life, right? If it's not, we still have a gap. And that mentorship can help you to give you the perspective and change the way you see yourself, change the way you see the world, and to constantly improve on area that you don't see, right? And to achieve whatever you want. So I think that's really, I can't emphasize to everyone that I know, seek mentorship is a must.
Yeah.
And also,
I'll just add to that. I think, and we're never going to focus on our careers doing the daily grind. And you need to carve out that time for yourself. And mentorship gives you that white space where you get to speak to someone in a confidential situation, and they're there as a volunteer, right? They're not getting paid. It's, a genuine, authentic relationship, and that's the nature that it should be. And you've got to find the right mentor as well for you, because I've had some that I've really resonated with and I've really grown, and then others didn't quite, weren't quite my speed. But I learned something from every one of them. And so I think the importance of having, a variety of different mentors over your career as well, so different perspectives. But it's really important to have people in your corner. And that's what mentors are. There's someone in their corner, they're there, that are volunteering their time, and they're sharing, their experiences of how they've carved through, and how to give you sort of ideas to navigate your career that you wouldn't have thought of. And also, help you navigate tricky situations. And you do need that white space and another opinion, particularly when sometimes situations at work can be difficult and emotional. You need to sort of step back and have another perspective.
Well, in addition to that, we also find that there is a room for paid mentoring too, Celine, particularly if you're looking to step your career outside of your organisation. Sometimes the politics make it difficult to have those discussions internally, and so sometimes people need external advice and potentially the connections that an external mentor might bring to them. So there's lots of different reasons, and perhaps to also just touch on sponsorship, which is another thing where, an organisation actively appoints somebody who's responsible for giving you opportunities, so actually creating opportunities for you to grow and progress, which not every organisation does, but if you get into one that does, it's a really lucky experience. So something to definitely think about. So let's move on to interruption bias. It's a common one where many women are cut off or interrupted more often than their male counterparts. So Ren, have you experienced this? And maybe you can share with us some of your examples or techniques that you use.
Yeah, absolutely been there many times, especially in my early careers. I just now I know, because before people will have the assumptions, which is okay, because everyone has assumptions, right? So if I'm in the same room, even I'm more senior, they will think maybe, oh, you just the one taking meeting notes, which I'm not. Right? So I think for me is a couple of points. One is I will introduce myself earlier. So instead of waiting for them to basically have assumption and basically the assumptions getting bigger and bigger, I'll actually actively say, hey, let me introduce myself a little bit before we talk to any business, right? So I'll explain how long I've been working in this industry, what are the deliverables I have, done before, what are the scales and all that, basically to cut that assumptions early and to have a trust built earlier than I used to, which is the one. Another one is I think it's just make a joke about it, right? I always make a joke. I'm like, it doesn't have to be politically correctly all the time, which is the way I like to build gender equity is I allow people to make mistakes because sometimes, as we all know, it's unconscious bias. If it's unconscious, they didn't mean to. So I would just make a joke about it. Hey, by the way, I'm actually turning this age. Actually, I've been working in this for 20 years. Actually, I'll take that as a compliment. I'll joke about it. I'll say, oh, you think, yeah, I'm not that young. Maybe it's my Asian genes are thanks to my grandma, thanks to my family. So I think gradually then instead of break that, creating a fiction, now I learned maybe it's opportunity to actually bring an ally in, right? If you're welcoming, if you're not taking it too like offensively, and you allow them to make some mistakes, they will actually pay that respect to you, and you earn an ally. So now it's just couple of approach I've done now compared to when I was in the 20. I was in the 20, I'm like, no, I haven't finished yet. It's like very confronting sometimes. So I think that communication skills can be trained. I think to your point, Lisa, that can be trained by mentorship. The mentor can tell you actually your body language, you can tweak this way, or your tonality, you can tone that a little bit, or your how to read the rooms, how do you communicate in a way, as Celine's point, nicely, but still make a point. So that can be trained through, internal, external mentorship or whatever program you can find that suits you.
That's great. Thank you for sharing those tips with us, Ren. I love that, introducing yourself early too. I think that would get rid of a lot of are you the tea lady thing. Celine, what are your thoughts to add to this?
Yeah, I'd agree absolutely with introducing yourself up front as well, and your position, and that, that's immediately sort of endorsing that you're a contributor. I think in a meeting, sometimes you can have people just wanting to voice, and some people are really extrovert and others are introvert, and they might not be able to, sometimes it's hard to get a word in. The great thing about WebEx is that you can actually put your hand up. And so that generally everyone can read the room. So we use that a lot now, but in person, sometimes you can be in a meeting room and there's a lot of people sort of talking at the one time, and it's hard to carve through or find that 1 second slot to say, hey, I've got something to contribute. But sometimes I will just sort of do a little hand gesture of, and so there's sometimes little cues and things that you can use that gets that attention, but in a really sort of gentle and, not obtruse way. I think it's always important to have your say and also carve out that time. Don't wait until the end of the meeting or, pull that person aside. If you've got a really good point or something to contribute in a meeting, it's got to be at that point in time. But yeah, just do a gentle intro in terms of, I've got something to, before we go on to the next topic, I've got something to add to that, or, so yeah.
And I liked your point of earlier too, to if somebody's getting talked over the top of, to reinforce that such and such has a point to make, and, take the discussion back to them to make sure they get that chance.
Yeah, and quite often in meetings, I will notice the person that is wanting, you can see that they're wanting to, and I'll just say, hey, Lisa's got something that I think Lisa's got something that she wanted to say. So I think it's also about supporting your peers as well. If sometimes you've got that extrovert person that wants to run the whole meeting and won't let other people chime in, but it's a case of that collaboration and helping your peers out as well as yourself.
Now, Robin was going to talk a little bit about voice and speaking style, but Ren, you would have probably experienced some of this. And we, as Australia gets more and more multicultural, we've got many people who've come from different backgrounds. So as a not native English speaker, there's a little bit of bias against you and assumptions that are often made. What can you think that employers can do to make this easier for people?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Lisa, because I think a lot of the I would say the non-native English speaker have this false assumption of, oh, because my English is not perfect, maybe I don't even bother to go to the forum or that events or that activity to speak up. I think from the organization perspective, like even when I did my podcast, right, and Coast actually gave me a lot of support. And at the beginning, even I was like, oh, they probably want some really good speakers, at least even for minority, they probably want some like, Australian grown, like Chinese or Asian or anything, but they didn't, right? So I think that from organization perspective, if you are in a position that can give the visibility, opportunity to those minority or non-English speaker, like native speaker, to say, hey, you don't have to be perfect, but maybe I can help you to get better. And if you want to take the opportunity, here is what we can do. And if you give them the platform, you will be amazed like how many people want to tell their stories. And it's a win-win situation for your organization, right? And for those people, for those talents. And it's gonna attract more talents to your organization who support, those kind of initiatives. So I think definitely, yeah, do your best to give that visibility. You'll be amazed. You'll be amazed, 100%.
So you kind of alluded to it, but tell us a little bit more about your podcast and the title of it and the sort of people you interview.
Yeah.
That's quite relevant.
Yeah. So I lived in Beijing, in Melbourne, in LA, and I like to connect with people because I see the value of connections, and that's where a lot of ideas, opportunities, and relationships get cultivated. But I was frustrated, as I mentioned before, of I don't see people actively seeking the connections, even within their own organization. So, and I was thinking, oh, in Beijing, when we ask, how are you? We don't say, how are you? In the old ways, we say, hey, have you eaten? It's like, Lisa, Celine, have you eaten? Right? And then we talk about food as a starting point. And then we talk about, even more topic of how you're going, and we drill down to any directions we want. I think that's a great idea. And I want to create that little podcast of me showcase. I can interview anyone in the organization and also create the visibilities to a lot of people getting interviewed. And we connect those people with food and drinks. We talk about our favorite, food, maybe it's own brand product or what's your recipe. But I want to just I don't see that connections is like not only me connecting with others, but give the courage to more women to speak up, to connect, to take the initial step actively. You taking the initiative, not waiting for others to change their policy or come talk to you or give you the opportunity, but you take the initiative to step out and say, hey, I think you're amazing. What about let's connect. And here's what I have. What do you think? Like, I want to see more women don't just break that comfort zone a little, step out of the comfort zone and, hey, create your own connections. And you know what? You'll be amazed how many amazing people you have not met yet. you'll be amazed. Oh, if I didn't have that conversation, I didn't know we could be that such good friends. Or there's opportunity there for me. I don't even know. I want to see that. So that's the reason I created Have You Eaten? And if you want to see it, please go to Cole's Instagram. There's a live at the Cole's Instagram, and you can look at those pink cookies. And for Have You Eaten, these are mine. Yeah.
I love
Thanks,
it.
Lisa.
The whole thing, such a great thing for Coles to do anyway. Perfect
Thank you.
branding. But just, obviously talking about speaking style and other factors that often make women feel inferior because, tonality and other things. Celine, have you come across much of that? And, do you have any advice for people that are being told that they need to either change their voice style or how they operate?
Yeah, that's a hard one, isn't it? I have heard like people say, oh, that person in that meeting was very high pitched, or, she was annoying to listen to, or etc. And I think it's a case of really having to sort of politely say to those people, oh no, she had some really good valid points. It wasn't that the most important thing in terms of her delivery, not so much her voice, in the nicest possible way. Generally, I say it a lot smoother and politer than that, but that's the intent behind the conversation. So I tend to turn those situations around by really talking about the capability of the person and not the superficial aspects. I think people by nature can be judgmental, but it's really up to us and also the culture of the business and us as leaders to reset that and just say, hey, it's not cool. You don't do that. And so I think tonality is really important to get in. So I guess in terms of public speaking or even, delivery of presentations, it's quite important it's quite a skill set, isn't it? Communication in general. And I think to keep people engaged and interested, you need to keep your subject on point, summarize, keep it, light. Also, if you're presenting, people are visual learners as much as audio, so have heaps of pictures and not just a lot of content. People have really short attention spans. So, in your terms of your delivery, keep it on point and keep it relevant and break it up as well. But yeah, I think to keep it interesting too, just try not to be monotoned. Like people get a little bit, bored if someone's just talking at the same tone. So try and vary the tone, but just be mindful, but be yourself. And if you've got a nasally or a high pitched voice, and that's you, then just be you. Yeah.
I love it. And look, as we all know, if you're passionate about something and you're talking about it, you'll engage your audience. But yes, there was a research done recently that said that the depth of male toned voices was more impactful than women's. And I just thought it's so interesting because it's innate, right? We can't do anything about it. Anyway, let's talk about the gender equity problem from a bigger picture perspective. We all understand that we need everybody involved if we're ever going to make any changes to stereotypes and gender norms. I think we'd all agree we need to promote positive male engagement to encourage men and boys to actively participate in discussions and actions to promote gender equity. Celine, you're very passionate about this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it sort of stems in a couple of different dimensions of my life. So I have a son and I raise him very differently to how my brother was raised. So my brother was the eldest. He was sort of like the golden child and he couldn't do no wrong. And yeah, I think the expectation he was to go to university, and my sister and I, if we did, we did. If we didn't, we didn't. So I think I parent very differently. I definitely, in terms of raising my son, he sees equality of domestic chores and roles and responsibility in the household, and he's a contributor as well. So, I don't do everything for him. He knows that mummy works and that he needs to unpack the dishwasher, and he helps, he puts all of his clothes from the laundry away and that sort of stuff. So it starts in the home. And I think he has a lot more respect for me as an individual, because he understands that mummy has to work. Mummy does meetings at night sometimes, and me empowering him to be independent is really key, and for him to respect women. So, and he does. He's only 12, but I think we're doing a good job there. I think just in the workplace as well, like when I also mentor men as well, and I think it's a case of, sometimes they have challenges with, a female boss, or how to connect, and, or differences in terms of management style, or thoughts on projects, and how to, so it's a case of sometimes, working with men as well in terms of how to best interact with women, which are, fundamentally we have different approaches and different thoughts. And so I think it also comes down to education in the workplace as well, and, breaking through those social norms and traditions, and having more female leaders at the top as well, that is really sort of setting the tone.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact that, you both have come up with some great ideas around how you can gently correct people without rubbing people's noses in it. And I think it's that attitude that gets people offside. At the end of it, most people come to work with good intentions to try to do the best things. And I think a lot of reluctance from men to support or be overt in their support is that they are worried that they're going to get criticised or do the wrong thing or whatever. And I think, like everybody, we're all making our own mistakes as we go along. So, Ren, what are you seeing happening in your workplace, and what other thoughts do you have on what can be done?
Yeah, and I think from my workplaces, I can see a lot that there's more and more men openly say, I'm the ally to support women for their career progressions. So I think that's very important, because the more we see, okay, there are, and same for their friends or other men as well. If they see, okay, these leaders are supporting women, and maybe that's something I can do as well, or I haven't thought about it. Now I know just more and more people are doing that. So I would like to see that, right? So if you just use whatever, if you just don't want to use the social media, that's fine. But if you want to use social media, that's another way of, and just, I can see a lot of posts. Like recently we had a relaunch program at Coast, which is basically supporting women who's, they have family commitment, they have, stayed away from workforce for a certain amount of time. And I can see even from Coast on LinkedIn, I can see a lot of leaders, senior leaders, and not only, posting it. And I think my general manager, he's actually, is filming the campaign as well, and as well as posting, and to raise their awareness. And I see my colleagues is, yeah, we're supporting women, we're the ally. I think that's kind of things I would say, like, you just firstly change that identity, and you don't have to be perfect, you don't have to do a lot of things yet, but that first steps, yes, I am an ally. And then it's a matter of what I can do from there. I think from the organization perspective, they can, give them the material or the tools that they can use to, they just, a lot of people, they want to be allies, they just don't know how. I think then if the organization can give them the how and what they can do, they will be, we will have more allies in this area.
Yeah, great. And I think that's great that so many men are starting to step up and say that they're willing to be allies. We do quite a bit with the Gender Equity Awards, and I love actually developing some of these roadmaps to make it easy for other people. And we've done quite a lot of webinars around senior male leaders talking about how they've developed their own roadmaps for this, and how they've approached things. So if people who are listening to this are interested, there's more on the Gender Equity Awards website. Just have a look at some of them, and we are always open to people joining as a male ally, because I think at the end of it, a lot of women need more encouragement to step forward to progress their careers, and we'll all benefit as a result of it. We know economically it's good for everyone. So what a fabulous discussion. I think you've learned a great deal today if you've been listening in around communication biases and how to nip them in the bud, and some of the power of mentoring and sponsorship, and some of the amazing work that both Celine and Ren have been doing, and why they have become award winners for the Gender Equity Awards. And again, if you happen to know anybody that you think, goes above and beyond and really works hard to make their workplace a great gender equity space, or supports the community in this way, then nominate them. And as I said, at best, you're going to make their day. And so it's a fun activity. So a huge thank you to both Ren Zhang and Celine Dickson for joining us today and having this great conversation. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Lisa, for having us, and thank you, everyone.